Last week, I attempted to paint a forest of birch trees using a palette knife. Sounds like a fairly standard technique, right? But what about when you're using watercolor paints instead of acrylic or oil-based paint? Well, I ran into a few hiccups, but nothing major. There was an issue with being unable to hold enough paint on the spatula, as well as some slipping, resulting in unplanned lines. I'll link that video above as well as in the description if you'd like to watch. That's why, in this video, you'll see that I'm using a piece of cardstock for the forming of the trees instead. My hope was that the paper would be somewhat absorbent and hold more paint. It's been folded in half for more surface area. I've taped down the paper securely on all four sides to help with the slipping issues. I also added a puddle of dark gray paint, hoping for some more dimension. Last time I only used black paint for the trees. The final difference is in the paper size. I love working with mini canvases, often cutting my watercolor paper down to 3-inch squares, but I'm trying to give myself more room to work on this piece. Now that we've addressed the challenges we encountered in part 1, let's see if the outcome is any better. Okay, so the first thing I'm noticing about the cardstock is that I've lost a lot of that randomness that I loved with the palette knife attempt. I suppose that makes sense though. Gaining more control means giving up the surprise elements that often make art more interesting to look at. I am trying my best to move quickly so I don't have time to think about my motions, but rather rely on instinct. It might sound weird, but I like the end result to be a bit of a surprise when I'm playing with watercolors. I'm filling in my background with the upper portion of the sky lighter than the bottom part. Now I'll try to use my cardstock to tap in some trees way off in the distance. I'm doing this while my paper is wet, so it will blur and fade out. I'm realizing now that I should have unfolded the paper as these trees are thicker than I'd like. I'll throw in a touch of yellow way up in the sky, and then I'll let this dry before moving on. Okay, the paper is dry now, so I'll start adding those small signature branches that we expect to see on birch trees, with their twisty, turny lines and dark leaves. Though I forgot to record it, I tried using my cardstock to make the first branch, and the line was too bulky and lacked that crisp look that I was going for. So I'm using a fine-tipped brush for the rest, pulling paint directly from the pan with my wet brush. Let's finish with plenty of grass, also thin lines, dark and crisp. time for the reveal. Watercolor birch trees with cardstock or birch trees with a palette knife. Surprisingly, I liked the palette knife technique much better. It was more of an enjoyable process for me, and I liked the end look better too. Which do you prefer? Or, next time you paint birch trees, will you be sticking with a paintbrush?